A new poll by the group Education Forward Arizona looks at the importance of a post-secondary education and the reason why many Arizonans aren't pursuing an education beyond high school. For more on the survey and the results, we welcome Rich Nickel, President and CEO of Education Forward Arizona. Good to see you again.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You bet. Everything to Gain, this campaign. Give us some indication of what this is all about and what you hope to achieve.
So I think over the last few years, we've heard some divisive messaging and narrative about, is post-secondary education after high school worth it? Who should be going? Should we put more people into trades? All this. What we decided to do is really think about the data that could tell that story. So we did a big report called Billions to Gain, which showed us very clearly that education after high school is really worth it. And from that, we said, okay, we have to get this word out to the public. How do we do that? And so we started this campaign called Everything to Gain. And basically what that says is Arizona has everything to gain if we have more people who are living here in Arizona get that degree or certificate or industry recognized certificate, through training and education after high school. So we're trying to do some things now to really get that word out that it is valuable, it is worth it, and we need those people to be part of this 21st century workforce.
And now this latest poll looks at why some of those people aren't part of that workforce, right. The reasons that they're giving. What'd you find?
So we did a poll earlier this year that said voters in the state, regardless of what we see on the political signs, really believe in the value of education and post-secondary education, and they believe in our universities and colleges. So then we wanted to find out, okay, if we ask some young adults, what were their primary barriers, since we know people know the value of it, to enrolling and completing post-secondary education? What would we find here in Arizona? We wanted our own information. A couple things really stood out here. Some were surprising, some were things we knew, but they lead to some clear direction forward. One of those is, by far, no matter what other questions we ask, cost is still the number one issue, and cost adjacent to the tuition, let's say like childcare,
yes,
or living, is the second biggest thing. So a lot of the other things we've heard about access and education deserts or maybe political ideology, that's not proving out in the polling. Cost is and affordability is really proving to be the major barrier.
And I'm seeing in your numbers here, 62% of moms cite cost as a major barrier, and that, of course, child care is 44% of dads cite cost. But it sounds to me like the dads and the moms too, but they're saying that not only is it the cost, but they can't afford not to work to take care of their families.
Right. Yeah. So it's a complicated issue, right? And we've always known that those students who aren't able to start within 12 months of graduating high school, their chances of earning that degree or certificate go down pretty fast. And now we're finding out why. Number one, it costs a lot, whether that's perceived or real doesn't matter. But secondly, once you start that life, it's hard.
Yeah.
And then this year you throw in another, challenge we've had, which is this really kind of challenging rollout of the FAFSA, which a lot of people depend on to get that federal aid. So then you've got this big affordability issue, and now people that want to get in, especially those who are from low-income communities, rural communities, they haven't had as much luck completing that federal paperwork that's actually going to give them access to those Pell Grants and that work-study money that can help them access. So I think we're going to see a pretty challenging couple of cycles when it comes to leaving a lot of money on the table and not enrolling.
I thought it was interesting, like fear of coursework, political bias, lack of encouragement, fear of discrimination. Those weren't major that wasn't a big deal for folks who say they really want to get that better education.
Right, and we found that a little bit surprising too, because we hear a lot of that narrative. But what we find is a lot of that really is kind of political narrative meant to build bases. The reality of it is it comes down to cost and childcare also. I think the good news here, if you want to put some silver lining on this, is that cost and childcare, these can be solved. Today we're making decisions as a state what we invest in. We're one of the only states in the country that does not have a targeted financial aid program that our state funds directly that helps our high school students that are from low-income communities go to our colleges and universities. So, it's really a decision we're making on how we invest our state's resources. And child care is the same way. If you're a full-time student, you're not eligible for supplements on child care. You know, we're really looking for working moms because we don't have enough money to go around.
Well, and the subs, we just did a story the other day about subsidies regarding child care. That's the waiting list has now been reinstated on that after all, because the federal money ran out and there's not enough state money to go around. So what do we take from the survey and how best to address these issues? Last question.
Yeah, so like I said, I think what we take is we kind of know where voters stand, we know what the barriers are, and now we're going to go back out at the end of the year before the next session starts, and we're going to say, okay, these groups we talked to, what would be helpful to you? What we think we're going to find, and we're already seeing hints of this, is there's a real call for some targeted need-based financial aid in our state for an investment there. And there's also a call to really start thinking about how we solve this child care issue. This is a broad issue that's not just hurting those who are wanting to get their education, but it's also hurting working moms, and it's hurting our companies. So this is a really broad social issue that we have to help solve. And both of these are going to take investment and a bipartisan agreement on how we get the revenue necessary to invest in these young people who want to be part of our ongoing economy.
Are you getting their attention?
People know. So it is something that people are getting, and a lot of it's because of the way things happen a lot of times in Arizona. Once the business leaders start not being able to fill those jobs, once they start losing important people in their organizations because they've had a child and can't afford child care to come back to that job, then our business people start speaking up. Once that happens, then sometimes we're able to gain some momentum quickly.
Rich Nickel, Education Forward Arizona. Good to have you here, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.